Before we get started, let's create a rectangle in the 2D window and let's simulate it. Let also position it something like that and also insert some pins here and another one is here. So we'll get some points that are elevated from the ground. So we'll be able to observe the effects we'll be putting on. Okay. So now select the fabric and under simulation properties, let's reduce the particle distance from 20 to 10. So we have more information going on. Alright. Now if we have click on the default fabric and apply this to the rectangle. And now you might have noticed that whenever I choose a material preset, I can also see the property details. So you can either choose a material from the tab or the drop down menu and edit it a bit more or completely make up your own settings here. So let's take a look what each setting does. Now first we have stretch weft and stretch warp, which we are already familiar with. So first one gives us stretchiness on the horizontal axis and the second one in the vertical axis. Now if we lower both the settings, you can see I am under simulation mode, so I can see what happening to the garments. Now you will see that I get some sort of two pins effect, and if I also try to move the pins in the 3D window, you can see that it's much more harder to move. So it's like the garment become heavier, and if I go to the other way around, you see that the garment immediately bump up back again. The third option is called shear. Now shear start pulling objects in the cross section. So weft is horizontal, warp is vertical and shear is diagonal. Now however, shear will produce material that was good elasticity. But since these three values are very similar and work together, it's good advice or good idea to keep them close. So if everything is bump up, we should bump up the shear as well. You can see the effect here in the 3D window. So let's go back to default, which is 27 and shear 8 or 9 is default value. Next we have bending weft and bending warp. The higher we put these values, the less the fabric is going to bend. So if I put this very higher, both the weft and the warp, you can see that I am actually losing a lot of details because the fabric simply is not bending enough. So it became very stiff. And if I try to lower these values like say 34 or 37, you will see that the fabric drops again. Next we have buckling ratio weft and buckling ratio warp. So the buckling ratio controls if the materials can be easily bent or not. The higher it is, less forces is needed to bend. This is settings that can be a bit more difficult to observe, since it won't necessarily be visible if we have an outfit that simply hangs on our avatar. But it can be useful if we are creating folded towels, sheets, or any kind of fabric that is folded. So with these settings we can create a visual difference. If we are folding, for instance, a silk like material that easily folded or a material like wool, this isn't. Next we have buckling stiffness weft and buckling stiffness warp. Now these values go together with bending weft and bending waft. The higher the values, the more stiffness the fabric falls on the corners, and the lower the easier it falls. Now I down that, we are gonna be able to see that since I don't really have any corners. So this is made for if you have a tablecloth or maybe a blanket that goes over a bed, and you would like to find how the corner fall for that particular garment. Next is internal damping. Now this is mostly used in animation. If we increase it, the garment move slower as we are in the water. See, the garment is moving very slow. See, it's very difficult to move. Now I am lowering the value. Now it's much easier to move. Okay. And as I said, this is also something that going to be difficult to observe when the garment is not animated, but it's very useful when we add sort of motion to the garment. Now density affects the heaviness of the garment. And next we have friction coefficient, which basically enlarges the friction between the garment and, let's say, the ground or maybe the avatar. So the garment and the avatar skins. So if we are doing tops or straps around the shoulders and we would really like to position them in place, it's a good idea to bump up refraction. So this strip of fabric will necessarily slide down from our after shoulders. And next we have thickness. So we are also able to apply thickness within MD. Let's try with 4 mm. And if I just zoom in the 3D window, and let's go to texture and select thick textured surface, and now we see the thickness that we applied. This is also very useful for towel or any kind of material we would like to emphasize that is thicker than the other. So as you can see, we can really define our fabric with the help of these settings, and if we are happy with the settings, we can also save them. So just scroll up in the preset menu, clicking on this icon, and keep that material for later use. Now on the next clip we will be putting some fabric on our outfit and preparing our final version.